as the tape recording is situated on the tape, so the whole cosmic manifestation is situated on the material energy and appears separate by means of kala. The material manifestation is therefore the objective manifestation of the Supreme Lord and exhibits his impersonal feature so much adored by impersonal philosophers. So, in a previous verse, text number 10, Vidura is inquiring from Maitreya about eternal time. He's inquiring that what are the symptoms of that eternal time? Please describe them to us in detail. So Maitreya is now going into more detail. This kala, this is the Sanskrit word for time. In Bhagavad Gita, we have the 5 primary topics that are discussed, which Prabhupada specifically mentions in the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita. Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, the Jiva is the individual souls, Prakriti, the material energy, and Karma is the activities, and then Kala is time. So of those 5, 4 are considered eternal, but the one that's considered temporary is karma, because karma can be changed. When one engages in spiritual activities, devotional service, one can minimise or burn away karma altogether. Of course, with time is eternal, and we see by the influence of time that the creation, maintenance and dissolution of the universe is going on. So one might think, well, that's a temporary manifestation. But the Prabhupada comments that the creation is and the dissolution is ongoing. It's a process that is coming and going all the time. So in that sense, it's considered eternal because it's always coming and going. It's an ongoing process. But karma, material activities, is temporary in that nature. So, of course, to try to understand the nature of time, Kala Shakti, the next chapter actually goes more into detail, calculation of time from the atom. So very technical understanding, and sometimes difficult to properly understand. But nevertheless, is presented in Srimad Bhagavatam. So then we can try to gain some understanding according to our individual realization. So time is a system, because it can be described in different ways. Somebody says, what's the time? You look at your watch or you look at your phone and it's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And we're sort of measuring our life in a sense, or moulding our life according to the time. And basically it's due to the movement of the sun that time has been measured. The sun comes up in the morning, and at midday it's at the highest. In the evening at dusk, it's, from the east to the west. So according to the position of the sun, we're registering the time. And different time zones are calculated according to different positions around the world. Like I think when Russia, the previous USSR, I think there was 7 or 8 time zones that from one end of the union to the other. Before sort of the USSR, sort of broke up. It was a huge landmass and many different time zones. But I seem to remember that at that time, the whole country ran on Moscow time, just for convenience perhaps. But so regardless where you were in the USSR, your clock registered Moscow time. So anyway, that was like an artificial process just for administration, I guess. But nevertheless, due to the movement of the sun, we're registering time. But basically, time can be understood to be impersonal energy of the Supreme Lord. And through the influence of time, everything is coming into being and being maintained and ultimately destroyed. So another way to understand time is the system by which our happiness and distress and karmic reactions are being delivered. So Prabhupada does mention that the internal manifestation of Krishna is Supersoul, Paramatma within the heart, and the external manifestation is time. So by the influence of this Kala Shakti, the influence of time, everything is changing in the material world. And despite trying to hang on to everything, hanging on to our material possessions, everything is taken away by the influence of time, including our very bodies. By the influence of time, we're taking birth. And, they've had the 6 manifestations of the body, where birth, growth, maintenance, production of byproducts or progeny, and dwindling and death. So that's ongoing. The living entity is taking birth again and again, going through those 6 stages, all under influence of time. So in the Bhagavad Gita introduction, Prabhupada mentions that above these modes there is eternal time. So above the 3 modes of material nature, there is eternal time, and by a combination of these 3 material modes, and under the control and purview of eternal time, there are activities which are called karma. These activities are carried out from time immemorial, and we're suffering and enjoying the fruits. So at least in English, we have the measurement of times. We start with seconds, and then minutes, then hours, and then days, weeks, months, years, centuries, millennia, like that. And there's, we're calculating, or we're using that as a measurement. So in the Vedic understanding also, we have measurement of time, many different, actually it's much more technical and complete than what we have in at least Western culture. So the smallest measurement of time given is called a paramanu, and paramanu is measured as 60,750th of a second, and I'm sure we're using that time measurement quite often. But nevertheless, that's given. So that's the shortest, and the longest, at least in this material universe, is Lord Brahma's life. So 311 trillion 40 billion. And there's so many, dozens and dozens of different measurements of time there given. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, the 11th chapter, Prabhupada mentions the purport that the standard time is calculated in terms of the movement of the sun, which we've mentioned, but the time covered by the sun in passing over an atom is calculated as atomic time. So obviously the whole manifestation is made up of atoms, just as the paramanu is the smallest time measurement, so the smallest particle of matter within this universe is the atom. So as the sun passes over that space, in other words, passes over so many atoms, in that way time has been measured. And so through creation, maintenance, destruction, everything has happened by the influence of time. And Krishna does mention to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, during the manifestation of universal form, that time I am destroyer of the worlds, and I have come to destroy everyone except you, the Pandavas. So he's telling Arjuna, whether you fight or not, all the Kaurava army is already destroyed by my influence. In other words, by the influence of my Kala Shakti, influence of time, everybody's already destroyed. So you decide what you want to do. And actually, Oppenheimer, who was a scientist working on the construction of the first atomic bomb that was exploded during the Second World War, when he saw the first test, he quoted Bhagavad Gita. He was, now I become death, destroyer of the worlds, which is more or less the same thing. Everybody was quite overawed about the power of that atomic bomb. So we also have, there was one book put out by some of our devotee scientists, Big Bang and the Sages. So there it's calculated that the Puranic age of the solar system is given, so according to the different Puranas, they're all giving the same time measurement of the age of the solar system is given as 4.562 billion years. And according to what the modern science, the scientific value, basically it's almost the same, 0.11% difference. So it's almost exactly the same. But interesting thing that the Puranic calculation of time has always been the same. It's not that it's been adjusted or edited. When the Puranas was first compiled by Srila Vasudev, that was the measurement given, whereas the scientific measurement, throughout the last couple of centuries, that age has always been updated as their research, increases more and more. So basically, it's a matter of the Western scientists catching up to the Puranic calculation. So now that they're 0.1% difference, so that's pretty close. And the scientists have obtained that through high position state of art radiometric dating. That was the technical term used. So in other words, through calculating the influence of atoms, so many different measurements. And again, the Puranic age given of the universe, 13.819 billion years, is only 1.3% different to modern scientific value. So we can have great faith in what the Bhagavatam, what the Puranas are presenting, that it's not simply guesswork or creative presentation by Srila Vasudev. It's we hear that Guru, Sadhu, Sastra are the three perfect sources of knowledge. So we're hearing from the spiritual master, hearing from the saintly persons, the sadhus, hearing from Sastra, scripture, and we can have faith that what's been presented is factual knowledge. And in these cases, the scientists are establishing that, yes, this is correct. They're almost exactly the same. And as I mentioned, the different time systems, like Paramanu is the smallest, and the Kalpa, which is the total measurement of Brahma's life. So within that also we have the different yugas, the four yugas, Kali, Dwapara, Treta and Satya Yuga. So together they're known as Cheta Yugas. So based on the calculation from Srimad Bhagavatam, we can understand exactly where we're situated. Once again, like the Western presentation, generally the Gregorian calendar is used. They start from the birth of Christ, AD, and so we're 2023 years since that point. I mean, there have been other different calendars used, but that seems to be the most widely used one around the world. But based on Vedic calculation, basically using Lord Brahma's life as the measurement, where within each day of Lord Brahma there are many different avatars or manus who come and go within that day of Brahma. So currently we're in the age of the Vaishvashvata Manu, who is the son of Vivishvan, who is mentioned in Bhagavatam as one who this knowledge was presented to the sun god and then to his sons, etc., coming down through the Guru Parampara, disciplic succession. So in the Vaishvashvata Manu, and within this particular day of Brahma we're in now, we're in the 28th Chaita Yuga. So there's 1,000 Chaita Yugas, or 1,000 cycles of these 4 yugas in each day of Lord Brahma. And in this current day, we're in the 28th cycle. So, and in this particular 28th cycle, we're just 5,000 years into the Kali Yuga. So we know the previous Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, this Krishna appeared, and in every 28th cycle of each day of Brahma, just after Krishna, Lord Chaitanya appears. So, so from that we can calculate exactly where we are from our time measurement based on Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, it's interesting that quite often you get people from the Hindu tradition saying that actually Krishna is not the original, Vishnu is the original, and Krishna comes from Vishnu. And because we have the Das Avatar, you know, the 10 different personalities who appear as of course there's unlimited avatars, but the primary ones presented, Krishna is presented as one of those avatars. But in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita by Rupa Goswami, he mentions that in this 28th millennia, 28th Chaita Yuga of each day of Brahma, Krishna himself, Swayam Bhagavan, the original personality, appears. But in the other Dwapara Yugas, there's a Shaktavesh avatar, like a Jiva, appears instead of Krishna himself. He's like a greenish hue. His body is a greenish hue colour. So in one sense, when it's presented that actually, you know, Krishna, Vishnu, not Krishna, in one sense it could apply to the other days of Brahma or the other Chaita Yugas, but in this particular one it is Krishna himself. So again, using the influence of time, we can work out one's astrology. So astrology is based on, like at the time of birth, what sign is rising or ascending over the eastern horizon, and that's calculated that that's your sign. And from that sign, you know, the different astrology birth charts are worked out, like who's in which house, and becomes very complicated, but nevertheless there's a science, astrological science can be used. And you know, many people may decide that I've got an event coming up, when is an auspicious time to perform that. It might be initiation, it might be a wedding, it might be opening a business, whatever. So based on your astrological birth chart, an auspicious time can be worked out. And that's all based on the time of birth and where the planets were at that particular time. So yeah, so in that sense, time is a fundamental factor in astrology. It influences the personal birth charts and current astrological events, anything you want to do. Particularly in the Hindu tradition, we see, I've heard that the Prime Minister, Indian Prime Minister, doesn't do anything until he has, you know, astrologers. They work out when is the time to do it. And there's actually apps you can get on your phone that if you're you got something coming up, you can, the app will tell you when is the auspicious time to do it. So for people into those sort of things, there's a lot of facilities available. And also through the influence of time, basically using astrology or planetary systems, positions. We're working out a codicy, like the 11th day after the waning moon, 11th day after the waxing moon. There's a codicy, so it's a special day for minimising bodily demands and try to increasing hearing and chanting. And also, appearance days of, Janmashtami and Radhastami and all the different avatars. All these things are calculated based on, astrological or astronomical positions of the planets, and it all goes back to using time as the measurement to work out. So we hear even in Krishna Leela, sometimes this is sort of calculated. There is one story where Krishna's father, Nanda Baba, he was planning to go to pilgrimage to Prayag. And so that was some distance away from Vrindavan, and obviously at that time you can't just go by, modern convenience. Everything was done by walking or at least a bullock cart. So he was going to be away for some time. So there's one story that's Pavan Sarovar, which is just near, situated not far from Govardhan Hill in the Braj area. So Pavan Sarovar was originally called Nanda Sarovar because Nanda Maharaj, he excavated the bathing area, the lake, full of pleasure, so the Brajbasis, the residents, could take bath there. So you hear about different kunds, Radha Kund, Shama Kund, etc. So that's like smaller. When you have very big, it's known as a Sarovar. So not far from Radha Kund is actually this Pavan Sarovar, originally Nanda Sarovar. So this is a story how it became known as the Pavan Sarovar. So one time Krishna, baby Krishna, Nandalal, he saw that Mother Jasoda was cooking all sorts of unusual preparations, not the normal rice, dal, sabji, chapatis, etc. She was cooking small, sort of fried things, samosa, kachori, fried dal, fried bhuja, etc. So Krishna, baby Krishna says, "Oh Maya, what are you cooking all these funny things for?" And she said, "Your father is going on Tirtha Yatra. He's going to Prayag. And so all these things are fried in ghee, so they'll last a long time. So when he's walking, he'll be able to eat them along the way." And so Krishna, he says, "So where is he going?" And his mother said he's going to Prayag, which is Allahabad. It's reverted back to Prayag, but the Muslims renamed it Allahabad, but it's gone back to Prayag now. And so Krishna, like any young boy, tugging at Jasoda, his mother's sari, and so, where is that? When is he going? So many questions. So Mother Jasoda says, "You have too many questions. I am very busy. You go and ask your father." So Krishna went to Nanda Maharaj and said, "Where are you going? Where are you going, Baba?" You're pulling on his dhoti, And so, "I'm going to Prayag." "Oh, and where is that, Baba? Where is that?" And he said it's a very sacred place where the river Ganges, the Mother Ganga, and the Jamuna and the Sarasvati, they all meet. Wherever rivers meet, it's considered like a very auspicious area. And so this is where 3 sacred rivers are meeting. And at this Prayag, every 12 years they have the Kumbh Mela, which is it's probably one of the largest gathering of people in the world all in one place. Like many, many millions of people go there. Every year they have a smaller festival, but every 12 years at different places, and particularly Prayag, they have big festival. I was there in '89, and there was, I believe, something just over 20 million people were there, all in like a 5,000 acre site. Of course, you had no conception there was that many people there, but apparently it was about 20 million. So they're all going, they're all very pious, going there to take bath at the, at the Triveni, at the conjunction of those three rivers. So Krishna, he said, actually, Baba, this is a very inauspicious day to travel. Tomorrow is Akshay Tritiya. It is very auspicious for you to start your journey then. So this is Akshay Tritiya, is like a very auspicious day on the Vedic calendar. Once again, calculated using time according to the the position of the planets. So this year, Akshaya Tritiya was April 22nd. Next year, it's on the May 10th. So it's a day where, once again, the Hindu tradition, if you're getting married or you're getting initiated or you're opening a business or you're moving into a new house, different things like that. It's considered very auspicious time to do, something like that. So Shai means decreasing, but Akshay means ever increasing. So the whole idea on that day, whatever you do, there will be abundance and opulence as a result of your endeavours. So Nanda Maharaj said, okay, as you're telling me, tomorrow I'll go tomorrow. So next morning, Nanda Maharaj, he wakes up early and he goes down to take bath. And to his surprise, he sees this big personality rolling in the dust in front of his house, rolling and laughing, ha, 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 ho, 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 like this. And he was so surprised. He's never seen such a personality. And then he would get up and take bath in the Sarovar, Nanda Sarovar, and then he'd get out again and roll in the dust, laughing and rolling, ha, 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 ho, ho, like this. And so Nanda Maharaj, he says, oh, Maharaj, who are you? I've never seen you before. And the personality said, I am Prayag. And Nanda Maharaj is singing, Prayag? We don't have a Prayag living around here. And he said, I am Prayag Raj, I am king of the Tirthas, king of the holy places. And so Nanda Maharaj singing, so why have you come here? And Prayag said, oh Baba, all year long everybody is bathing into my waters and leaving their sins behind. So once a year on Akshay Tritiya, I come here to take bath in this Sarovar and I become free of sins. And so Nanda Maharaj is very surprised. Then he looks a little bit further and he sees all these very beautiful ladies doing the same thing. They're taking bath in the water, rolling in the dust, taking bath again. And he's seeing so beautiful ladies, beautiful hair and beautiful faces and beautiful silk saris, and not just ordinary saris, but sewn with silver and gold weave. And so he goes over there and says, oh, my dear ladies, who are you? And they started saying their names. I am Ganga, I am Jamuna, I am Sarasvati, I am Kavera, and I am Narmada, Sindhu, Godavari. So all these sacred rivers, personified sacred rivers, they all come to take bath. And so, oh, ladies, I have never seen you before. Why are you here? And it says, all year, people come and take bath in our waters and they leave their sins behind and we become overburdened. So once a year on Akshay Tritiya, we come to this Pavana to become purified. So at that point, Nanda Sarovar become known as Pavana Sarovar. So purified, become purified with the dust and the water. So then anyway, Nanda Maharaj, he takes his bath and then he goes back upstairs. And by then Krishna is awakened. He says, "Oh, Baba, you are going now?" He says, "No, I'm not going." And he said, "Baba, why is that?" He says, "Well, every place I want to go and take bath, I've come here. I've come here to take bath. Why should I trouble to go, these other places?" So from that time, it became known as Pavana Sarovar. So anybody who takes bath there becomes Pavana, purified. So that's just a nice story, just incorporating the understanding and influence of time. They're calculating Akshaya Tritiya is, auspicious time to do these things. And there is another story behind Akshaya Tritiya as well. It's from the Mahabharata. So we know that when Draupadi and the Pandavas, they were exiled to the forest. So Draupadi was praying for help from the sun god, Surya. And the Surya supplied an inexhaustible wok or pot that the benediction was that like Draupadi as a chaste wife, she would eat after her husband. So after everybody ate, then she would eat and the pot would never run out, but after she'd eat, then it would stop producing. So that's how they were maintaining themselves. But they also had a big entourage as well, different brahmanas. And so, they were thinking, we've got no facility, we're living in the forest, how can we maintain everybody? So the Surya Dev supplied this inexhaustible pot. So one time Duryodhana, because he was very envious and wanted to give the Pandavas so much trouble, at one point he asked Durvasa Muni, along with his 60,000 disciples, that the Pandavas are just staying in the forest nearby and you should go there and they will be able to feed you and look after you very nicely. Of course, he did arrange it that it was just after the midday meal, knowing that Draupadi had eaten and that pot won't be able to supply anymore. And so Durvasa Muni, of course, what was his nature? Who knows? Become very angry. He was, he's liable to become angry and curse people. So everybody was a bit afraid of him. And so Duryodhana think, yes, he'll become angry and he'll curse the Pandavas. And that was his evil sort of minded nature. He liked to give people, like Duryodhana's nature. So Daksha and the 60,000 disciples arrive there. And so Draupadi immediately, great anxiety. And what to do? How can I be hospitable to so many people? So she's thinking, Durvasa Muni, the disciple, you go and take bath in a nearby river and then we can arrange, lunch for you. So at that time, Krishna happened to be there and Draupadi revealed her mind. And so Krishna said, so you have your pot? She said, but I've already eaten. Said, but show me the pot. And so there was one little grain of rice in the corner and he took that. And because Krishna, if Krishna is satisfied, the whole world becomes satisfied. So by his mystic arrangement, Durvasa Muni and the 60,000 disciples were felt like they'd just had a full meal, and they felt a little bit ashamed that they would go back to eat because they couldn't actually eat anymore. And so they just sort of left the area, and in that way Draupadi was saved. So it happened to be that on this day was actually Akshaya Tritiya. And so at that point, that pot became known as Akshaya Patra, or the Akshaya Tritiya pot. So it's just another story based on this astrological calculations that on these auspicious days, Akshaya Tritiya, you perform some pious activity and there's unlimited sort of benedictions as a result of doing this. So in this way also Draupadi and the Pandavas were saved by the curse of Durvasa. So as I said, this topic of time, it is very technical, sometimes difficult to properly understand, but very simply, time is like Kala Shakti. It's the impersonal manifestation of Krishna, and by by the influence of that time, everything is going on, being created and destroyed, and in the material world. But of course, in the spiritual world, time is considered conspicuous by its absence. When you don't have time, you don't have past and you don't have future, you simply have present. So the spiritual world is operating only in the present. There is no time as we understand it in the material world. So thank you very much for letting there. If there's any questions or comments at all? Yes, just get the mic.
Are all of the universes in the same yuga?
All the universes? It's a good question. I'm not exactly sure. But, I mean, they're all created at the same time, and this particular universe is considered the smallest. Others are much bigger. But exactly if they're operating on the same yuga schedule, I could only presume they probably are, but it's only a guess. Sorry. Yeah.
It's not practical.
Hare Krishna, thank you for a nice explanation. You explained very nicely about the influence of time and the utilization of time, both in regard to astrology and choosing auspicious times to do different activities.
Yeah.
Of course, we know that the signs are absolute, but at the same time, we are also very conscious that there are very few, if any, really expert in utilizing that science.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to hear your thoughts about the present utilization or use of these things.
Of astrology, you mean?
Astrology, calculation of time, because of course it's actual science, but at the same time the users of it have, of course, many flaws, and therefore we see a lot of sometimes strange results.
Yeah, well, as you say, well, I can mention that Prabhupada never focused very much on astrology. His Guru Maharaj Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he was an expert astrologer, but at some point he gave it up because he said it doesn't take into account Krishna's intervention. You know, you might have a particular, according to astrological chart, a particular karmic sort of destiny. Krishna can change it like that. So therefore he neither of them, didn't focus very much on astrology. There's one Mataji, I don't know if she's still living in Mayapur, but she used to be, her name is, I think, Radha Madhava Dasi. And she comes in a long line of astrologers in her family. So she wrote a book called, she does a lot of, astrological readings and counselling, etc. But she wrote a book called How to Wreck Your Life with Astrology. So, anybody can try, with astrology, you can get a computer program that throws your birth chart up. That the real skill is interpreting that chart. So, it's not simply a mechanical process. There has to be a bit of intuition and insight. So, as you say, it's fraught with issues, and if you take an astrological reading as absolute, yes, you may get in problems, get in trouble. So, in the end, just depending on Krishna, because as we said, he can change anything. He preserves what we lack and preserves what we have, carries what we lack. So, according to our particular astrological, destiny, Krishna can change it if he wants. So I guess that basically summarises, how I would understand, astrology. I mean, it's also, there's the guideline that if you want to know something, ask 3 brahmanas, and if they all say the same thing, you can accept it as, good advice. So if you go to 3 astrologers and you just sort of take them as a guide, you go in the middle way sort of thing, one says yes, one says no, one says maybe, so just take the maybe. Yeah. Yes, Muddy. Just
I was listening at the back from the speaker. You mentioned about time and the influence of the time in astrology. I was also thinking about the Muhurta. Sometimes there's an eclipse. So listening to it on Facebook and the Spark by Shesha Prabhu, I think they were having Krishna Katha and it was eclipse and he was appreciating the devotees that came. Because I remember a few years ago we also had an eclipse here and some people were saying not to come and some were saying. So that's also, is that dependent on the person's faith that they come, because Krishna can, as you say, Krishna can change everything.
Yeah. I mean, generally eclipses are considered quite inauspicious. But a lot of that, I don't know how much is Hindu tradition and actually Vedic understanding. But generally speaking, they say that any food that's left out, outside during an eclipse shouldn't be eaten. And, at the time of Lord Chaitanya's appearance, there was the eclipse and everybody was in the Ganga chanting, so there is different guidelines there according to, but if you're doing Krishna conscious activities, that's obviously overrides any material manifestation. So that would be the guideline, I think. If it's doing it for Krishna, then it's auspicious regardless of the external activities. Yeah.
I was just also remembering when one devotee, older devotee passed away a few years ago, and there was one devotee, it was not correct what she was saying. She was just telling me on the side that that person died inauspiciously. They left their body, there was no one, and they died in the class, and no one was there. But we read in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada clearly says, Krishna says that doesn't matter if one leaves the body at an inauspicious or auspicious time for a devotee, it's all auspicious because it's in connected to Krishna.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, it's not dependent on who's there at the time you're leaving. It's based on your whole lifetime's activities, your desires, etc. I mean, it can be more auspicious or less auspicious externally, but if Krishna's in your heart, then it's going to be auspicious. Krishna's not going to forget your devotional service because the externals weren't, there. So, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai.